Hi everybody and welcome back to me, because I've been gone for a while, not doing proper lore videos for a while, but I am back and this time it's with Orks. Everyone loves Orks. Warhammer 40k Orks are some of the best Orks in fiction ever. They're funny, they're fungus funny guys. What is an orc? An orc is a giant hulking humanoid creature in green, sometimes black, sometimes brown, can be reddish green, usually green as a base. That was created long time ago by the old ones in their last ditch effort to fight the Necrons and the other guys like the enslavers and the other evil men in the universe back then. Who was the old ones? Well, that is a topic for another video, but the space lizards, they are what we think the politicians are. The lizards. Lizards. They're lizards. Space lizard. Just see the Seraphons, known as the Lizardmen from Warhammer Fantasy and Age of Sigmar, and then you basically have the old ones. Anyways, the old ones created the Orks back then, which were massive, giant version of orcs who were smarter, high-tech, very powerful, dangerous. But as time went on and the war against the enslavers and the Necrons didn't go well, they had less and less time to create these creatures, and they started faltering. They created something called the BOYZ, which is the first weird knob. We will get into what it is. A weird boy. We'll get into what it is very soon. Just follow along for now. The orcs we know now differ quite a bit from both the BOYZ and the Orks. They are quite big still, around the height of slightly big higher than a man, like 6 foot and above. They can grow to incredible height the longer they fight, because fight is nourishment for them. They do eat, but their main nourishment is fighting, as they would say. Oh, you're fighting the humies and the yumis and the umis and the gringles and the skinkles and all of those above. After the War of Heaven were lost by the old ones who disappeared, no one will know where they went to. What did the orcs do? Well, the orcs decided to set up pseudo-society and clans and groups where there was a strict hierarchy in place. Because they might be brutish, not very smart boys, Uncle Funnies, but they do have a strict hierarchy. This hierarchy is, however, in 90% of the case, dictated entirely by size and strength. The bigger you are, the stronger you are, the more you are in charge of everything that happens. This is how orc society works. The strict hierarchy can be divided even further into different categories. You have the war boss at the top, the orc boss, the big boy. You have orc nobs, and then you have orc boys. There is several individual groups within this, but usually this is about how it goes. There is separate special categories that we'll get into soon. The regular orc troop that governs most of them will be an orc boy. An orc boy is the regular guy who will run headfirst into melee or shoot. That's an orc shooter, orc boy. And they will do most of the fighting initially. These will be led by an orc nob who will lead these. This guy will take only orders basically from anyone bigger than him, which would be the orc boss. Sometimes, occasionally, an orc mega nob, which is a heavily augmented nob. However, that's being a bit pedantic, I would say. Besides this group, there is, of course, individually under each one, there is different subtypes. From choppers to shooters and all those. Without getting into detail, that is obviously melee troops, ranged troops, specialized troops, rocket troops. They have that, of course. They have rocket troops. They have everything that's good for war. They have these things. Besides these, as the main orc, there is also mech boys, weird boys, and pain boys. These rank about, I would say, around a knob level, because these are quite required for most combat. The mech boy usually takes care of inventing all the weird ass shit that orcs have, which is, by the way, amazing, and we'll get into that orc technology and orc belief soon enough. The weird boy is the orc psychers. These are the magicians, and they are naughty crazy, and most orcs don't want anything to do with them. That is a fact. They don't want to hang around them, but they are very required, because how else will you go through the warps if not to sacrifice a bunch of weird boys? And also, it can be really fun to see a weird boy's head explode, potentially exploding a bunch of the enemies as well. That's a good laughing. That's a good fucking laughing for an orc. There is, and of course, the pain boys. That is the medics. The pain boys can vary heavily. They also usually are the ones who augment the individual orcs, for example, replacing an arm with a giant claw or something like that. This is the basic of orc hierarchy and how it's based. There is, however, subtypes of fungal funnies and orcs called squigs and grots or gretchens, or even, you can say, kind of goblins, but these are not copyrightable, so let's not call them goblins now. Grots are a type of orc. Technically, they come from the same fungal funny spores, and they grow up. If there's less nutrients, they can become a gretchen or a grot, which is a goblin size. They're usually sneakier, they're stabbier, they're small, sometimes they're food, usually they are helpers to the orc. So an orc they will usually hang around either a grot herder, which is a type of orc who specializes in getting all these guys together in a group and attacking the enemy, or potentially an orc warboss or an orc mech. Not all of those above will have multiple assistants who are Gretchlings, grots, because the higher power the guy you hang out with, the less you are in danger of getting randomly eaten. Usually, however, they are just cannon fodder and will just be thrown in whatever. Who cares? They're grots. No one gives a shit about them anyways. They even put them in guns as ammunition sometimes. Again, we'll get to this because they have some of the best, funniest technology, because the orcs are made to be the fungal funny boys of the Warhammer 40k universe. Does not make them less dangerous though. But here we go. Yeah. Under these are the squigs. Squigs are basically animals. They are, if there's even less, not enough to cause an intelligence to spark. You have squigs. They are usually round creatures, 2 legs, and like 80% of their body is a mouth. However, there's like a bazillion different versions of squigs. There's even, won't believe it, it's true. It's true. The hair an orc has of a hair squig. This is a very wanted squig that they bite onto the scalp of an orc, and that gives them a haircut. For example, these are the squigs. Squigs can be used for everything. There is squigs they stack full of dynamite and that explode. There is squigs specially made for eating, which they'll just herd, and sometimes, yeah, some of the grot herders or squig herders will grow these, and they are specifically made for eating. However, if a grot gets in the way, or a lesser orc, who cares, maybe they're good for eating too, sometimes. There is squigs for everything. There's even colossal mega squigs that sometimes outsize even the biggest war boss. But because of the low intelligence, they can't really be the boss of it anymore. And these are just made for horrific combat. For example, what happens if you take 2 giant squigs, teeth in ball shape, link them together with chain, and send them into the enemy? Well, you have basically a ball and chain with a big mouth that'll rip everything as red. Those are the absolute lowest in the society of orcs. Now, on a slight divergent, there is a thing called orc freebooters, but we'll make a separate video about that. It won't be as long, but there's no reason to get into the nitty-gritty of the small detail with that. Now that we're set up with orc hierarchy, let's see how it actually works in practice. So, you have a planet of orcs, why not? And you have one guy, he's called and he decides, I'm bigger than the other one, so I will challenge him to a fight, and we'll destroy each other, and the winner will become the new war boss. Kills the other guy, eats him, sometimes just demeans him, just beats him down. So he's less than nothing. And then he's in charge. What happens then? Well, if he has enough power behind him to continue, like example, he takes his clan of orcs and he starts overwhelming the planet, and they will maybe look to space and see, we should invade other planets. What then happens is a war. A war, W-A-A-A-A-A-A-G-H, a war, is when enough orcs are combined, they can go into basically sometimes galactic-wide war frenzy. Depending on the size of the war, it could stem from fucking village-based war to galactic-spanning war, depending usually how big the war boss is and how strong and how powerful and how much energy they exude out of their body. Like a fine misty sweat. But let's say he has decent size, he'll start a war, he'll take over the planet, he'll gather enough energy, enough mech boys and stuff like mechs and big mechs and stuff like that, and he will create spaceships. Spaceships will be crude, rude, but they will function, and we'll get into that soon enough, how they function, because if you look at some of the orc vehicles, show a bunch of them right, not there, right here. There will be killer cans, death threats, stuff like that, big stompers, spaceship, rocks, which is a meteorite with engines that they have carved out, so you can stuff like a million orcs in there and then you just launch it on a planet. They don't seem to be able to function, but there's a very good reason that they do function. And that is to do with the orc psychology, because I've already mentioned that there are weird boys who are like orc magicians. However, every single orc is a little bit of a magician in and of himself. The orcs are interconnected with the warp and the immaterium in such a way that the orcs, what they believe happens. It has a tendency to happen. It's not individually strong enough to make massive changes usually, but if you get enough of them, you could potentially end the world if they just one day decided all of them woke up and thought, oh shit, the entire galaxy exploded, and then it all exploded. Potentially, it's theoretical at that point. How it actually works in practice is, for example, take the regular orc gun, the shooter. This gun shouldn't be able to fire. It doesn't work. If you put it in the hand of most humans, unmodified, or most of any other xeno race, this thing doesn't work. It's tubes metal, it is metal in the wake shape of a gun, but in the hands of an orc, it fires. It fires a lot, it fires fast, it's not very accurate, but that doesn't matter, that's not the point. The point of the gun is it makes big noises and goes bang. But how does it fire? Well, here we go back to the orc slight magician, as they're all slightly psychically attuned, and they believe it can fire, and that's how it works. They believe this shit will fire, so it fires. This is more like all orcs believe shooters can fire, so shooters can fire. This is one of the things where the collective thought that this might happen can actually make it happen. This belief, the orcs' belief and the psychic abilities, interfere with everything they believe. Everything that happens is because of this. Occasionally it is actually magic, like there is this one specific weird boy who turns people into snakes. Squig snakes, not regular snakes. Squig snakes. So long squigs, basically. But that is like proof of their actual power. However, the regular troops and their ability to make barely functioning tech work way better than it's supposed to, that is the special key to why orcs can do what they do. Why does their shitty rock spaceship work? Well, they do believe that it works. They believe that these things can fly. They're too stupid to be convinced otherwise. They won't even attempt to be convinced otherwise. They won't dare to try to convince us. They don't think about it because it works. It's worked before, it works now, it'll always work. So that's how you can fly in a minecart with an engine, basically. That's how you can plop a car engine on a rock, and now it can fly to Terra and terrorize everything. Terrorize Terra. This leads back to one of the shorts I made earlier, where how did some orcs defeat a titan with a dragster? Well, this dragster is fueled by fuel, metal, and make-believe. And that is the gist of orc fighting, history, lore, and everything. They are partly fueled by make-believe. How do you defeat something that is fueled by make-believe? Well, unfortunately, again, if this had been the Orks, the back in the days, the big boys, that probably wouldn't stand a chance. We probably would not stand a chance to defeat those guys if they had the same power of make-believe, because they could do a concerted effort to all believe it. However, Orks, first of all, like fighting so much, they'll never really be able to establish a proper society that's galactic spanning. They have been close a couple times, don't get me wrong. There is Gaskul Maktaka and the Beast, to name just two really big ones. One is alive, one is dead, and it was multiple orcs. That's another story. The Beast, very tall, like 20 stories tall, because they never stop growing. Because they fighting, they get energized, and they continue to grow. Anyways, because of the stupidity and that constant lust of fighting, they usually don't set up anything bigger than this. And usually there is one orc who will always think, I am actually better than this other boss, so we can never join him. I'm a big boss, that's a big boss, but I'm the bigger boss, so we can't really say that we're under this boss. Again, with some exceptions where you have Gaskul Maktaka, which is, he is an amazing boss, and you'll get his very own video because he is fucking cool. And he's actually really smart in his own way, but he's quite smart for an orc. And he was able to make one of the biggest orcs in history, alongside the Beast. But we'll talk about that guy in another video. There's 2 videos. Another fun aspect where their belief in everything affects everything that they do is in color. I'm not talking about race or species or anything like that. I'm talking about regular everyday colors. The different colors an orc will wear as camouflage or on his tech has different meaning. Not all colors have a meaning, probably to a lesser degree, but a couple of the big ones and very regular colors have a meaning, and again, due to the belief, this actually happens. The most classic and famous example is red makes things go faster. This is something that is so popular in pop culture that it affects non-Warhammer related media, and red go faster. There's usually references even in non-nerdy things besides Warhammer. It's great. Red makes things go faster. The orcs believe so, so it does. That is why you usually will see trucks, cars, and dragsters and everything else with red painting on it, because it will actually make them go faster. Blue, it makes things luckier. You paint something blue. This is actually a very often seen example for primal orcs, or like wild orcs that live in the wild, who maybe are not enough to create a society, so live in small tribes. They often have bluish war paint on, and that makes them luckier. They get less likely to get hit, and it's actually rather smart. If you believe you won't get hit, and your psychic ability makes what you believe slightly true, you probably won't get hit, and then the blue color seems really lucky. Yellow is for gold, luck in gold, like riches, and firepower, because of course what comes out of the gun? A little flame. That flame is yellow. Make the gun yellow, bigger flame, more firepower. Also, bigger chance that you'll find riches. Ooh, that's pretty good. Now, most riches orcs don't give a shit about, with one exception, which is the freebooters. They will also get their own video. That's 3 videos now, guys. But yeah, freebooters, they believe in wealth besides the main orc wealth. I can shortly get into that. Orcs' currency is teeth. T-E-E-F. It's teeth. It is orc teeth. Orcs' teeth keep growing, you can knock them out, you can keep them. That way you have a fortune by having a shit ton of teeth. Other races' teeth means less. Okay, if you kill a giant monster with giant teeth, that's probably pretty wealthy. If you kill a Gretchen, that's not as much teeth. If you kill a human, easy. Shit teeth. Terrible teeth. Not worth anything. They don't even regrow. How will they ever be wealthy? Black. As I've mentioned, those black orcs makes you stronger, like tougher, like more durable. This is often seen in the orcs who are very dark green to the point that they're almost black. These are black orcs. And blacks are tough. They're usually bigger, more powerful, and they are believed to be tougher because of this. And because black orcs are tougher, the color black makes you tougher. So you could paint some blackness on your helmet, and the helmet is very likely to be able to take a few more shots before your brain explodes. Of course, there's many colors, and I'll do a very short where we quickly go over each one of them. 3 videos and a short. That's a lot of videos and shorts. 3 videos and a short. Anyways, back to the topic. Now, who controls all these things? Where does all this belief come from? And what else does it impact in Ork culture? Well, they believe in the god Gork and Morg. Their belief in this has created so Gork and Morg actually does exist. Somewhere in the warp, Gork and Morg exists, and they are a pain in the butt to all the other chaos gods. Because they're orcs, they're giant orcs, they can't be reasoned with, they just want to go fighting. Anyways, Gork is brutal yet cunning. Morg is cunning yet brutal. They are the same, but not. In an orc's mind, they are not interchangeable. To most others, they probably are, and that's why there's an incarnation called Gorkamorka, where they have two heads and they're one being. Morg might be more cunning than brutal, but he's still an orc, so he's still plenty brutal. Gork is more brutal than cunning, but he's still an orc, so he still has this devious, weird cunningness that comes with being an orc. That is their religion, and that's what it's based on. It does actually differ who believes in these Gork and Morg. For example, Gork, the more brutal one, is more believed in by the regular orcs. Most regular orcs will go to Gork because he's the brutal one, so it's just fighting. All the fighting, less thinking, more fighting. Whereas stuff like the more intelligent one, commandos and mechs and weird boys and pain boys, they'll usually go with Morg because there's a little bit more cunning. These are guys that will backstab a person, because advantage. You still win the fight, you still have the fight, but the person doesn't get to fight back, and that's fine to some orcs. To most it's not, it's cowardice, it's not okay. But yeah, so it is actually split up. There's a little bit more of that. They are not that big of a difference. Again, in orc brains, they're very different. To most others, it's kind of interchangeable, but that is how orcs work. For a regular human, or an Yumi, an orc with a rocket on his back is still an orc. An orc with an axe, that's an orc, and then there's the big orc. They're all the same because they all want the same. They want to kill you horribly. They don't even want to kill you. If they lose, that's fine, because then there's more fighting to be had. That's the thing. Orcs are amazing. Orcs are fun. If you want to have a side that's neither good nor evil, it's orcs. Orcs can lose a fight, but if it was fun, it was worth it. And they get to fight another day. Orcs can win a fight, and that makes sense. They're orcs, they're better than everyone else. But they had a good fight, so it was worth it. The worst thing you can do to an orc is an easy fight. If you put up any form of resistance, you get some honor from the orc. You get a little bit of respect for the orc. Don't stop fighting. The orcs are great. That's why. The orcs are just great. In this video, we talked a little bit about the lore, the orc creation. Not a lot about that. A little bit of the hierarchy. And a little bit of their most famous and infamous aspect. Their ability to make things they believe happen. In the next video, we're gonna go into details about Gasgul Magtaga, one of the most famous orcs to ever exist. After that, we will talk about the Beast, arguably the second most famous orc that's ever existed. Probably the one that's done the most damage in existence. Finally, we're gonna talk about the orcs that are not like the others. Freebooters, commandos, and storm boys. 3 different orcs that each have a role to fulfill in orc society, but do not function like the rest of the orcs. Thanks everyone. Thanks for stopping by. This was I hope it was worth waiting this long. I doubt it was, but here you go. Here's my video, and watch it or don't. I don't care. Subscribe. It's somewhere. I had fun. That's the important part. Goodbye everyone. Next up, more orcs. If you have corrections, anything, feel free to write it in the comments. It's actually really good. The more corrections I get, the more I can practice. Again, the point of these videos is not as much to practice. I'm usually going over this by what I remember in my head. Sometimes things change, but that's too bad. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for watching, everybody.